Chapter 241 Abyss Source Quality. In the private room. Can I have your names? After Marvin ushered them in, he asked. I'm Maximus, and this is Sky, Maximus introduced. Marvin typed out the two names, looking for their information in the Ethereum realm. After reading their information and realizing they were newcomers, he came to an understanding. You want to set up a shop in Purgatory City, correct? Yes. To set up in Purgatory City is not only expensive, but you also need the following: status, contribution, and crystal merits. A contribution? Status? Can you elaborate? Maximus asks in puzzlement. In the Abyss realm, aside from crystal merits as currency, we also use contribution points. Each mission you finish grants you contribution points, which can also enhance your status. Right now, you two are just challengers with 0 contribution points. As for the status ranking, it's Challenger, Sentinel, Guardian, Vanquisher, and Executioner. To get a plot of land in Purgatory City, you need at least Vanquisher status and 1 billion contribution points. If you're ambitious, you can also set up your private outpost. You only need an Executioner status to do it, Marvin explained. I see, Maximus nodded in understanding. It seems he was still far from buying a plot of land in Purgatory City. However, hearing that he could set up his outpost, a glint passed into his eyes. In the future, his guild would also stay here. Having a private outpost is quite convenient. What about the other layers? Can you also set up a private outpost there? By the way, how do you get to the other layers? Maximus suddenly remembered the danger of the Purgatory layer. There was no way his guild members would survive in this environment. Yes, to set up a private outpost in the central layer, you need a Vanquisher status. As for the boundary layer, you only need Sentinel status. As for getting to different layers, you need a corresponding status and contribution, and then you can apply for a transfer, Marvin explained. How about it? Do you have any needs? Marvin asked. No, thank you, Maximus said wryly. He can only hold off for now since his status is low, and he has no contribution points. For this annual exchange event, he can only exchange fewer Abyss resources for some money. Of course, he wouldn't be unscrupulous, just enough for his identity. Maximus wanted to accumulate enough crystal merits to buy Abyss Source. He only hoped it was not so rare. After leaving the Ethereum Abyss Council, Maximus went back and forth to multiple stores and finally accumulated 100 trillion crystal merit. Fortunately, there wasn't much surveillance in the Abyss realm. Just a Tier 9 disguise item is enough. More importantly, 100 trillion is a drop in the ocean for this kind of place. As the only city in the Purgatory layer, housing tens of thousands of outposts and with the lowest living individual strength of Tier 7. The wealth hidden here can directly promote a few Tier 9 individuals. It's so ridiculous that he couldn't help but be a little greedy. However, walking around the city, he felt multiple Apex Sovereign auras converge around. Just a slight disturbance and these atomic bombs would be activated, bombarding you to oblivion. As for the tens of thousands of outposts? Previously, he was only introduced to the 3,000 outposts guarded by Tier 9 Apex Sovereigns. However, based on Marvin's introduction, there are tens of thousands of private outposts in the Purgatory layer alone. Top guilds and organizations operate these private outposts to mine inexhaustible resources. Inexhaustible resources are resources generated by Abyss energy without pause. It can be mined and collected endlessly without diminishing. It can be said that it was the cash cow of the top-tier guild and organizations in the Abyss realm. Ethereum Gold Chamber of Commerce, Purgatory City Branch. After earning 100 trillion crystal merit, Maximus removed his disguise and looked at the tallest shop in the city. Maximus didn't dare to enter this building in disguise, like the Ethereum Abyss Council headquarters. It's one of the buildings with a Tier 9 Apex Sovereign resting inside. Although his Tier 9 disguise is also Tier 9, it's nothing in front of the real deal. Upon entering, he was greeted by a steward. Hello, what can I help you with? I need some Abyss Source, preferably Tier 6 and above, Maximus answered. Then please follow me. I'll call the manager in a while, the steward said. For this kind of big customer, the steward didn't dare to take it. After waiting for a while, the manager of the shop came in. Oh hello, I'm Keen. I heard you are buying Abyss Source, can you specify? Okijin? Do you know Fijin? Maximus paused a little and asked. Go, are you from In-Town Outpost? A yes, a Maximus nodded. I see, Phrygian is my brother. How about it, is our name easily recognizable? Maximus just smiled wryly at such a unique name. By the way, I'm Maximus, he introduced. When you said specify earlier, did you mean there are many types of abyss sources? Although Maximus already knew the division of abyss source, he pretended not to know. Knowing that he was Phrygian's brother, Kijin must know his identity as a newcomer. It seems that Lord Maximus is new here, Kijin nodded in understanding. Many people from the Ethereum realm come to the Abyss realm every day. Although coming to the Purgatory layer first is a bit rare, it's not that surprising. Furthermore, 3 months ago, he had already come to know about Maximus from his brother. Maximus' identity was already imprinted on his mind. This is a wealthy customer filled with treasures. Thus, seeing Maximus didn't understand anything about Abyss Source, he explained patiently. Abyss Source is divided by quality from normal, elite, and lord level quality. Starting from the 7th tier, this quality ranking begins to apply. As for lower tiers, it's only normal quality, Dijin explained. I see, Maximus nodded in understanding. Basically, the quality of the Abyss Source depends on the quality of the Abyss monster that it produces. Maximus didn't know if there were higher quality Abyss Sources here. However, according to the book he read about Abyss Sources, Abyss monsters are ranked from cannon fodder, which is directly produced by Abyss energy. It usually ranges from Tier 1 to Tier 3. Second, there are normal Abyss monsters. They are produced by Abyss Source and usually range from Tier 4 to Tier 6. Third, there are elite Abyss monsters produced by elite quality Tier 7 Abyss Sources. Fourth is the Lord level Abyss monster. Although an Abyss Source can also produce it, it usually is only one per Abyss Source. It basically occupies all the energy of the Abyss Source to produce it. However, such a Lord level Abyss monster is basically invincible in its tier. It needs multiple people ahead of its tier to subdue it. Then fifth, according to the book he read, it is the Monarch-level Abyss monster, the destroyer of the world, the terminator of dimensions. The weakest Monarch-level Abyss monster has the strength of an invincible Tier 9 being. What weirded out Maximus was that the fragment of Abyss heading to their realm should be capable of producing Monarch-level Abyss monsters. Yet, until now, after countless epochs, there has still been no result. Otherwise, with it, the Ethereum realm would probably have been destroyed countless epochs ago. How is it? Do you want to buy the Abyss Source? Dijin reminded, seeing Maximus in a daze. Yes, give me everything you've got. Great. We have 70 Tier 6 Abyss Sources. That would be 700 billion crystal merits. You can pay with rare resources if you want, Dijin excitedly offered. Oh right, Maximus just rolled his eyes. Knowing that he was Phrygian's brother, Maximus already concluded that Dijin knew how he would pay. Here, you can count it slowly. Maximus took the resources one by one. Dijin was also patient and meticulously appraised and counted all the rare resources on the table. Soon, after counting 700 billion worth of resources, Dijin still looked a little unsatisfied. By the way, what about Tier 7 Abyss Sources? Maximus asked, seeing that Dijin looked unsatisfied. At this dash, Dijin was suddenly embarrassed. Truthfully, we don't sell Tier 7 Abyss Sources. They were internally collected by the guild or sold in the auction. Then why did you bother asking me to specify what I wanted? Maximus said a little angrily. What the heck? Explaining to him various delicacies, yet not being able to sell them? He was ready to take out his pants, yet you tell me you're a man? What auction are you talking about? Maximus asked with a frown. Every night during the annual exchange event, the Ethereum Abyss Council will host an auction. Our guild and other top organizations should auction many high-quality resources, including high-tier Abyss sources, Dijin explained apologetically. I see. Maximus also calmed down. He knew the rareness of high-tier Abyss sources. That's why earlier, he was somewhat happy that Dijin dared to explain the quality of the Abyss source. Who knew that he was merely tempting him? Chapter 242 Earning 100 trillion. Exiting the shop under the apologetic gesture of Kijin, Maximus reached a valley and donned a disguise. His objective this time was to purchase more abyssal sources. He couldn't obtain a higher tier abyssal source, so he decided to buy a larger quantity. A tier 6 abyssal source could yield him over 1 million system points daily. After acquiring 100 of them, it will also equated to a normal quality tier 7 abyssal source. Maximus didn't bother with lower-tier abyss sources. He wasn't being lazy but rather trying to avoid causing too much disturbance in the market. While Maximus scoured the market for abyssal sources, Sky was also shopping. Unlike Maximus, Sky shopped without any specific motive, indulging in clothes, food, and various accessories. She spent millions of crystal merits each time she made a stop. Unwittingly, she exhausted a few 100 million crystal merits without realizing it. Sky sighed as she looked at her empty storage ring. It's too little, she couldn't help but complain. Maximus had influenced her spending habits, skewing her concept of money. She realized she had just spent 3 months' worth of hard work in just a few hours. This is the fault of that bastard, Sky internally reasoned. However, she suddenly thought that after returning from the annual exchange event, Maximus would help her purify the crystal merits she had condensed. This would likely boost her monthly income to billions. Then let me borrow some money first, Sky thought, sending a message to Maximus. Wireless connections were available in Purgatory City, allowing the message to go through easily. However, in outposts and the wilderness of the abyss, such wireless connections were not accessible. The chaotic abyssal energy in the surroundings blocked spiritual consciousness, wireless signals, and any form of connection. Achieving freedom of network connection required a large apparatus filled with dense Tier 9 arrays. This method of communication was only available in top guilds and organizations. After a while, in the residence rented by Maximus for a few days, Sky was waiting for Maximus. Maximus! Sky said excitedly, jumping into his arms. Oh, what do you need? Maximus asks knowingly. Maximus didn't know where she learned it. But every time Sky needed anything she would act coquettish. Money. This little girl is too poor to buy her food and clothing. Would this Mr. pity me? She said seductively. It depends if you are obedient, Maximus joined in the play and asked vaguely. Mr. is a pervert. This is how the market goes, little girl, if you want money, you must pay for it. Bad little mister. Sky broke the hug. Although she liked Maximus, she was still not ready for such a thing. What are you thinking? I'm just asking for a massage, Maximus explained. Of course, not even a fool would believe what he said. My fee is very expensive. Can you afford it, little mister? Sky said as she stretched her hand. Is $1 billion an hour enough? Maximus said nonchalantly. $1 billion an hour? Sky was speechless. $1 billion an hour? Is that what a human can say? She worked her ass for 3 months without any rest and barely earned a few 100 million. Now you're telling me you can earn that in just an hour doing prostitution? Hey, life is really impermanent and unfair. Hurry up, I still have work to do, Maximus urged, seeing Sky in a daze. Before Sky called him. He had already bought over 300 abyss sources, scouring all the shops in Purgatory City. This cost him over 3 trillion, causing a dent in his wallet. If he didn't want to flood the market with abyss resources all of a sudden, Maximus would have paid using abyss resources. Unfortunately, there was already little movement when he sold 100 trillion worth of resources. He underestimated the sense of smell of the people here. Even 100 trillion can cause a slight disturbance. Fortunately, it was only a little commotion, only a few ordinary people cared. Seeing there was more rare abyss material for sale, they couldn't help but doubt if there was an abyss tied somewhere. Soon, Sky massaged him, excitedly thinking of how she would spend the money. Although $1 billion had meant nothing to her in her previous life. Now, she was still a weakling, it was already a lot. Sky thought money was easy to earn with some rich guy by your side. An hour later. Comfortable, Maximus stretched his body. It seems that you have a talent for being a masseuse, my money is worth it, Maximus praised. Come give me the money. Sweet words wouldn't work, Sky said, thinking Maximus would default her pay. All right. Maximus shook his head helplessly and gave money. After receiving the money, Sky became energetic. Such easy money. She thought that if she massaged Maximus 24 hours per day in a month, she would easily earn over $500 billion. This is already half the money an average Tier 7 individual would need to be promoted to Tier 8. By the way, what work are you going to do? Sky asked, remembering what Maximus had said earlier. It's the auction tonight. Do you want to join me? Then I would gladly join you, as Sky smiled and suddenly remembered that there was still this event. She was still wondering what to spend the billion he just earned. Now, there is a ready-made place. After dressing up, Sky looked excitedly at Maximus. However, what she saw was a different man. What happened? Are you in disguise? Sky asked doubtfully. That's right. Maximus nodded, changing back to his original appearance. Are you going to rob the auction? Sky asked jokingly. No, I might spend a lot tonight. Having a disguise is better. I hear it's for you. A Tier 9 mask of disguise? You're really rich, you can still get something like this, Sky said with admiration as she wore the mask. Is this face fine? Changing to a multitude of beauties, Sky asked for Maximus' opinion. It's fine. How about this? It's good. How about this? It's good. How about this? It's good. How dash? It's all good, just choose a disguise. And no face would be as beautiful as yours, so don't make it hard for yourself, Maximus said, stopping Sky. If she continues, they will be late for the auction. Go, how can a mere disguise match me? You still dare to entertain this thought, mister? How dare you? Sky said like a fickle. But in her heart, she is happy to be praised inadvertently. Looking at Sky's curled-up smile, Maximus can only sigh. Women are really troublesome creatures. At night, Ethereum Abyss Council Auction Hall. Walking through the entrance, they were greeted by a steward. Hello, sir, ma'am. May I have your invitation card? Here, Maximus said, taking out a golden card. Earlier, after he learned from Kijin about the auction, he immediately applied for one. Fortunately, it was pretty easy, you just need to show a little of your assets. A Supreme VIP? The steward was a little shocked. One of the managers on the side heard it and hurriedly came forward. Please follow me, my lord, I will take you to your suite. Being a Supreme VIP means at least 100 trillion in assets. Such a big shot made the steward a little nervous. Fortunately, his manager hurriedly came forward. Soon, the manager guided them to suite no. 3. Suite no. 1 to 10 are for Supreme VIPs. Apparently, there was already 2 Supreme VIP ahead of him. Inside was a luxurious room, fitting the status of Supreme VIPs. Is there anything you need, my lord? The manager asks after sending them in. Don't bother, Maximus waved his hand. Then please just call if there is anything. The manager bowed and exited the room. A Supreme VIP? Did you rob some rich boss or something? Sky asked immediately, seeing that there was no one around. She also knew the conditions for getting a Supreme VIP invitation card. But as far as she knew, Maximus didn't have that kind of money. Thus, she wondered if Maximus had robbed someone and would like to join. Earning 100 trillion at once is very exciting just thinking about it. A stupid Maximus flicked her forehead. Who can be as rich as me, carrying so much money with such puny strength? Maximus wouldn't dare to show that he had such money if not for the special rules of Ethereum Abyss auction. That is, you can freely disguise yourself. The auction hall is filled with a dense array that prevents all kinds of detection. Even a Tier 9 Apex Sovereign would be noticed once they tried to investigate someone. Thus, people could confidently spend money here without being known. This rule was specially implemented because, previously, auction winners were ambushed and died. This chaos caused a lot of loss, which was detrimental to their fight in the Abyss realm. Then where did you get the money? Can you teach me? Sky said pitifully. It's easy, you just need to be as rich as me, Maximus generously shared his secret. How can that be possible? Sky rolled her eyes, seeing Maximus wouldn't tell his secret. Mr. is really bad and stingy. Chapter 243 Intense Bidding. Soon, the auction began. Coming to the stage was the auctioneer who introduced herself. A good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Olivia, the auctioneer for the night. And now, without further ado, let me present the first item. Olivia then pushed out a table with an exquisite compass on top. Abyss Navigator Compass. Ahis, an Initiate Abyss Treasure. Tisk, TSK, this should be fun. Ahahaha, those VIPs should be in the hot seat right now. The crowd below chattered excitedly as the first item was presented. In the private suite, Maximus was a bit puzzled seeing the commotion. What is that? Abyss Navigator Compass is just a real-time map of the abyss, Sky said, dismissing it. Oh, a real-time map? Maximus became interested. It seemed like a trivial thing. But in the abyss, it was a life-saving artifact. Most parts of the abyss are like a jigsaw puzzle, always moving. If not for the beacon coordination array in each outpost, people would get lost in the abyss. Having a real-time map can not only help you find resources more efficiently but also ensure your safety. Soon, Olivia also explained the function of the Abyss Navigator Compass. The Abyss Navigator Compass is a modified Abyss Initiate treasure born directly in this world. It can provide a real-time map of the abyss within a 1 million kilometer radius. Although it's not very clear, you can only see rough terrain. It was a sought-after item, especially for those with private outposts. With it, it is quite easy to find resources while avoiding large groups of abyss hordes. And now, as for the first bidding price, it would be 1 billion crystal merits. A 1.5 billion. A 2 billion. 3 billion. A 4 billion. A 5 billion. A tisk, TSK, the peasants are bidding joyfully, an individual from VIP Suite No. 22 jeered. Ahaha, let them enjoy for a while, later, they will know what despair is, the VIP from Suite No. 23 agreed. Soon, the bid reached over 100 billion and began to slow down. This is already 1,000 times more expensive than the normal initiate treasure. However, the people in the VIP room have still not yet bid. A 103 billion. Soon, a few seconds of silence began. Are the other bidders? A going once? A going twice? The one who bid 103 billion was already euphoric, imagining bringing home the treasure. However, to his despair, a slight mocking voice came from the VIP room. Ahihi, let the fun begin, 1 trillion. A voice from VIP in room No. 23. Hold your horses, boy, 1.5 trillion. You two don't compete if you don't have enough money, 3 trillion. VIPs from room No. 11 to 100 engaged in an intense bidding competition with each other. Fuck, the VIPs are moving. Damn, this year again. Is our disparity of wealth really big? Don't compare yourself to them. What they eat in one meal may be more than what your blood and sweat earn for a year. Ahis, I don't want to be rich. Just give me 1 trillion and I'll be happy for life. Just dream you have everything there. Soon, while the crowd below chattered among themselves, the bidding price reached 29 trillion. In VIP room No. 3. Maximus, who was planning to bid for the Abyss Navigator's compass, stopped. Although he could still afford the current bid, it's unnecessary. His goal is the Abyss source, all the other things, and passing clouds to him. If he can easily afford it, he will buy it. If not, he will give up. While he was thinking, a supreme VIP from room No. 9 bid 40 trillion. These supreme VIPs are really rich, Maximus couldn't help but sigh. As for the VIPs from room No. 11 to 100, they already shut up like quails. Their assets are only about 30 trillion. As for the supreme VIP, 100 trillion is just the bare minimum. A tisk, TSK, I really want to rob that VIP from room No. 9, Sky muttered greedily. Ahaha, you wish? Maximus rolled his eyes. Although various anti-detection arrays were in place, he still felt the overwhelming aura in VIP room No. 9. Although it was not as strong as the clones of those ancient Apex sovereigns, Maximus was sure that it was a bona fide Apex sovereign. Basically, in supreme VIP room numbers 1, 2, 7, and 9, there is an Apex sovereign being who came to join the fun. Soon after, the bid stopped at 71 trillion, a bid from VIP room No. 9. A 71 trillion. Are there other bids? A going once. A going twice. A sold to our supreme VIP No. 9. Olivia happily said. The final price of the Abyss Navigator compass is quite satisfying. Although it's not the highest in history, it's already quite good. The less fortunate people below also chattered excitedly at the price. Only in this auction could they probably hear prices that range to trillions like it's nothing. TSK, what a show of wealth. Does anyone know the big shot above? Ayo, I know. It's Your Majesty, Lysarian Silverleaf, the ruler of Silverleaf Domain. Ayo? The one who became an Apex sovereign this epoch? A tisk, TSK, how envious. Just after reaching tier 9, you can already have this kind of wealth. How I wish I could reach that state one day. Unfortunately, there is no wishing fairy or wishing god here, only abyss monsters. The crowd finally chattered about the identity of the super rich man in VIP room No. 9. In VIP room No. 3. Maximus was also a little shocked to hear that Lasarian Silverleaf resides in VIP room No. 9. This is the true genius of this era. If Maximus could be called a genius at the junior level, then Lasarian Silverleaf is a super genius in the major league. This man defeated all the odds, reaching what others couldn't get even in a lifetime. Although it's easier to be promoted to tier 9 now than in the past, the milestones needed to achieve it are still challenging. This is proven by the fact that in the Ethereum realm, there are only less than 10,000 apex sovereigns in all the continents combined. As for using crystal merit or God's authority to be promoted to tier 9, it's fake. What is needed for tier 9 is not merely power but the control of the law. Without it, you're just a worthless imitation achieved through various drugs. Otherwise, with Maximus' current asset, reaching tier 9 is just a click of a button. After the commotion, the auction continued. One by one, rare resources, items, and treasures were sold. Unfortunately, this time, there was no more fierce competition. None of the VIPs moved this time. It seems that all of them are waiting for the finale. A few hours later. And now for our main event. We present this normal quality abyss source to you, Olivia said. Although it was labeled normal, the crowd's reaction was not normal at all. After being purified, this thing can directly upgrade their talent, affinity, weapons, everything in their possessions. This is an omnipotent resource that can change their destiny. Unfortunately, looking at the VIP rooms, they can only smile wryly and dream about it. For the starting bid, 1 trillion crystal merits. A 1.2 trillion. A 1.5 trillion. A 1.6 trillion. A 1.8 trillion. A 2.1 trillion. The VIPs from rooms 11 to 100 fought fiercely, adding hundreds of billions at a time. This time, they were more serious not to overspend. It was unlike earlier when they knew someone would buy it even if it reached a sky-high price. Although a tier 7 abyss source is rare, it's only worth around 10 trillion. Any more than that would be a waste of resources. In VIP room No. 3. Maximus was also geared up, focusing on the rising price of the abyss source. A 5.3 trillion. A 7.7 trillion. A 9.2 trillion. A 10.3 trillion. Soon, there was a pause, causing the auctioneer to look around to see if anyone was still bidding. Maximus knew it was his time and bid. 13 trillion. There was another pause as people in VIP rooms No. 11 to 100 looked to see if someone from another supreme VIP room would bid. Unfortunately, they would be destined to be disappointed. Maximus had already analyzed all the psychology of those in the VIP room when they were fighting to bid earlier. Except for VIP room No. 1, No. 2 and No. 7, who were apex sovereigns and didn't bid until now, all were within his calculation. 13 trillion is just right, in the sweet spot, not too high, not too low. Are there other bidders? A going once? A going twice? A sold to Supreme VIP No. 3. A 1 down. Maximus smiled at his successful purchase. Why are you smiling happily? You just paid extra for a tier 7 abyss source, Sky complained. Ahihi, so what about a few extra trillion? It's just a little money, Maximus shook his head, not taking the money to heart. If not for being too high profile, he would buy a tier 7 abyss source, even at the cost of 100 trillion. This tier 7 abyss source can provide him with 100 million system points. Any money he spent was worth it. Chapter 244 Abyss Source Monopoly. Soon, the tier 7 abyss source was delivered to his room by the earlier manager. Here is your tier 7 abyss source, my lord. Maximus also happily paid for it as he eagerly looked at the next normal quality tier 7 abyss source being auctioned. Just like the last time, the VIPs from rooms No. 11 to 100 eagerly bid. A 5.3 trillion. A 7.7 trillion. A 9.2 trillion. A 10.7 trillion. Waiting for the right time, when there was a hint of hesitation in the bidders, Maximus quoted his price. 13.4 trillion. Soon, there was another silence as the auctioneer looked to see if there were other bidders. Are there any other bidders? Unfortunately, Maximus was like a ghost, consistently hitting their sweet spot. They could only wait and see if VIP no. 3 was wealthier or if there were more abyss sources.
A going once? A going twice?
A sold to Supreme VIP no.
3.
And just like that, another Tier 7 abyss source. For the next bidding of the normal quality Tier 7 abyss source, the bidding was more intense. However, Maximus was still like a predator waiting for his prey, and he bought the third Tier 7 abyss source for over 14 trillion. Likewise, the fourth Tier 7 abyss source cost him 16 trillion. Now, for the fifth abyss source, even the Supreme VIPs were willing to move. They couldn't let a single individual monopolize all the abyss sources. There was also a lot of chatter in the crowd below as they held their hearts for the increasing prices. As for the auctioneer, Olivia, she was like a blooming flower under the storm. If not for being presumptuous, she would yell, "Let the storm come harder." For the fifth abyss source, Maximus spent almost double the value of the Tier 7 abyss source, which is 19 trillion. As for the sixth, even Maximus sweated as his mind overclocked with all the possibilities. Under his undeterred efforts, he finally bought the sixth abyss source for 23 million. Now, there were only a few hundred billion crystals merits in his pocket. Beside him, Sky looked like a distressed little wife worrying about her prodigal husband.
Is that enough? Can you not buy more?
Sky pleaded. Although it was not her money, she was still distressed. With how things were going, the seventh abyss source might be priced over 30 trillion. Such a price is enough to buy 3 Tier 7 abyss source. Don't worry, I no longer have any money. Maximus sighed. He would also like to buy more, unfortunately, that's all that he can. Soon, the seventh Tier 7 abyss source was presented. As Sky predicted, it was sold for about 30 trillion. Although Maximus didn't flame the fire, the stage was already heated. For those top VIPs, this is their only chance of easily getting a Tier 7 abyss source. Meanwhile, the one who got the Tier 7 abyss source, VIP no. 23, was smoking with anger. Damn that man who raised the price.
Is he insane?
Now I can barely buy an abyss source with my budget. Beep no. 23 nearly cried at such injustice. He would probably call it quits if he had another channel to buy these Tier 7 abyss sources. Unfortunately, besides top guilds, organizations, and powerful individuals who can get abyss source if needed, he was only an average rich second-generation individual who only had money and nothing else. This abyss source will at least make him talented enough to be worthy of his wealth. The other 3 VIPs purchased the 8th, 9th, and 10th Tier 7 abyss sources of normal quality. Didn't know whether to celebrate or cry that they still managed to buy a Tier 7 abyss source. Having spent over 3 times the amount for the abyss source, their heart couldn't help but tighten in distress. As for the Supreme VIPs, they decided to stop bidding altogether after seeing Maximus stop. They joined the fray earlier because they didn't want Supreme VIP no. 3 to monopolize such a rare resource. And now, for our second segment, we present elite quality Tier 7 abyss source. Olivia smiled joyfully. The fierce bidding earlier had her yearning, hoping it would be the same as last time. This time, Olivia couldn't help but look at the person in Supreme VIP room no. 3. If it were not for this gentleman, the auction of normal quality Tier 7 abyss source would not have been so successful. Unfortunately, there was a dense anti-detection array and rune in place. She didn't even know if the person in Supreme VIP room no. 3 was a man or a woman. For our first bidding price, it is 10 trillion. Olivia quoted. Supreme VIP room no. 3. Looking at the elite quality Tier 7 abyss source, Maximus couldn't help but feel greedy. You don't have to look intensely, you can afford it anyway. Sky jeered, mocking him for being a spendthrift. I just ran out of money, not poor, Maximus rolled his eyes. Furthermore, I'm richer than you, I still have several hundred billion, Maximus mocked. Oh, Sky became sad all of a sudden. What a hateful rich bastard. Soon, the intense bidding began. Now, people in VIP rooms know. 11 to 100 barely bid. This is an elite abyss source. Not only was it 10 times more expensive, but it was also 10 times more effective. Although it can't compare with a Tier 8 abyss source, it was a scarce resource. It can upgrade your potential from rank 0 trash to rank 8 supreme talent. Given enough, you can even awaken your special physique in advance. That's why even those in the supreme VIP room bid fiercely. Soon, the price reached an overwhelming 150 trillion. Such a large amount already silenced the crowd below as they held their breath. Such an insane amount increased second by second, like their pounding hearts. Soon, after the price reached 230 trillion, there was silence.
Are there any other bidders?
A going once?
A going twice?
A sold to Supreme VIP no.
One.
Olivia happily said. Usually, an elite quality Abyss source can be sold in the auction for 150 to 180 trillion. Although the final price was not as crazy as the normal quality Tier 7 Abyss source earlier, it's enough. Next, the second elite quality Tier 7 Abyss source.
I'll let the bidding begin.
Soon, another intense bidding began. However, it seemed like the apex sovereigns in the auction hall had already booked the elite quality Tier 7 Abyss source as they bought it effortlessly. The second elite quality Tier 7 Abyss source was bought by Supreme VIP no. 2 for 240 trillion. The third elite quality Tier 7 Abyss source was bought by Supreme VIP no. 7 for 250 trillion. As for Lacerian Silverleaf from VIP room no. 9, he didn't have enough money for that. Maximus heard he was setting up his private outpost and had no money to spare. If it were not for the importance of the Abyss Navigator compass, he wouldn't even have come to this auction. After the auction of 3 elite quality Abyss sources, Maximus waited to see if there was more. Unfortunately, to his disappointment, there is none. As for the Tier 8 Abyss source or a higher quality Abyss source, there is also nothing. It seems that he was not lucky this time. Thank you for your participation this time. All the guests are welcome to attend our banquet.
That's all, have a good night.
After the end of the auction, Maximus didn't bother attending the banquet and hurriedly exited the building, coming to multiple valleys, streets, and various blind spots. Maximus and Sky disguised themselves over 100 times. They can't be too careful. After all, Maximus was relatively high profile this time, almost monopolizing the Abyss source. He was sure he was deeply hated by those 4 people who bought the normal quality Abyss source. Indeed, as Maximus predicted, the 4 people already have their men scouring the Purgatory City for such a hateful man. Unfortunately, they were destined to be disappointed. The anti-detection array in the auction hall is not a joke. Plus, with Maximus's carefulness, they didn't even find a hair of a clue. Soon, a week had passed. During these days, Maximus roamed around Purgatory City in various disguises and sold Abyss resources he bought from the Myriad World Mall, ensuring his safety and preventing large fluctuations in the market. Maximus could earn tens of trillions every day. As for the auction every night in the Ethereum Abyss Council, it was lackluster, without much substance. The VIP rooms were not even half full. As for the Abyss source, in a week, he only bought another 3 normal quality Tier 7 Abyss sources. As for Tier 6 Abyss sources, he bought another 100 of them from various shops. All in all, his harvest in the annual exchange event was huge. His 6 billion system point harvest per day became 7 billion. This is just his first annual exchange event. Next year, after he has more money, he may even compete with the elite quality Abyss source. By then, his system point generation should skyrocket. Soon, most people in the Purgatory City returned to the teleportation array. It was time to return to their outposts and contribute to the Ethereum realm. The rest is over, and they need to head to battle. Taking one last look at the city, Maximus sighed. See you again next year. Chapter 245 Tintin Awakening. In Endtown Outpost, Maximus and tens of thousands of others were teleported one after another to the Endtown Outpost. As he looked around the familiar outpost, he suddenly felt his token vibrate. Immersing his consciousness in the system space for a second, he saw Tintin awakening. Before he could investigate any longer, Sky beside him spoke. Let's register our arrival first. Oh, right, Maximus unconsciously nodded and followed her. The registration is proof that you came back to your assigned outpost. If you chose to stay in Purgatory City instead of returning, there was a severe punishment. According to the degree of the offense, you may be sentenced to pay some crystal merits or, worse, be hunted and killed. These harsh rules prevented anyone from avoiding their duty. Fortunately, there was no quota for how many Abyss monsters you must kill monthly. However, without crystal merits, you can't do anything in the outpost either. What you drink is the wind, and what you shelter in is the earth. After registering their unique mana signature, they came back to Netherluck's mansion. Netherluck's mansion.
Did something happen?
Sky asked, seeing that Maximus was in a hurry. Tintin woke up, Maximus said, taking out the token from his dimensional space.
Where's this?
Tintin questioned as she looked around. The sleeping fairy is finally awake, Maximus joked.
Host, you're here.
Tintin excitedly said. What happened to your 3 months of hibernation? I'm absorbing the data stream sent to me by the main token spirit. Because there is no backup processor here, it took a long time to absorb the information, Tintin explained. You should have said so, Maximus said. Quickly sifting through Myriad World Mall, he bought a Tier 9 quantum processor at 2,800 trillion dimensional coins. If Tintin needed to fully function here helping him, she needed such a processor. Here, you can quickly bond with it, Maximus took out the quantum processor.
Nice.
Tintin said, bonding with the quantum processor. Soon, like enlightened, Tintin felt the long-lost feeling of having everything at her fingertips. Although her own processor is also fast, there was still a difference between walking and driving.
Thank you, host.
Tintin thanked sincerely. Enough of that. You should have processed the information about the abyss, can you tell me now? Maximus asked. This is what he had been waiting for. He had been blind to what is what in this abyss for a long time. If it were not for his ingenuity and strength, he would have made a lot of mistakes by now. Sure, host, I can transfer it directly to your mind.
Do I initiate it now?
Bam. Soon, a stream of information was forcibly forced into his mind like a mush of potatoes. Not wanting to flood his brain until it fried. He quickly activated various special physiques and domains that could hasten his mind processing. He also used system points to master the knowledge sent into his mind quickly. After a few minutes, Maximus finished absorbing the information.
Finally, I have the information of the abyss.
Maximus thought excitedly. Sky, on the side, just rolled her eyes. What makes a difference if you know the information about the abyss or not? Sky already knew the ins and outs of the abyss like the back of her hand. Yet she still couldn't earn money as fast as Maximus. If Maximus knew what she was thinking, he'd spank her and tell her that she didn't know anything. Soon, a year passed like a bolt of lightning. Maximus and Sky also became tireless machines. They were either fighting on a mission or on the way to take a mission. They were like mindless grinding bots, wanting to level up their characters. Slash after slash, blood after blood, crystal merits piled up like a mountain. After a year without stopping, Maximus and Sky's status was finally upgraded from Challenger to Sentinel. In a famous bar, Sky was like a wasted drunkard as she indulged in their rest day. Gah, so hard. Can we relax for a few days? No more fighting? Sky said numbly. Although she is a training freak, she still has needs and wants to rest. However, the bossy bastard in front of her didn't want her to rest for even a bit. From now on, there is no need to fight, Maximus said mysteriously.
What, no need to fight?
Sky unconsciously stood up due to excitement. Fortunately, they were in a private room, so no one heard it. Otherwise, many would question if there was something wrong. That's right, we don't need to fight anymore, Maximus nodded. To be honest, he was also tired. After a year of non-stop fighting, even a robot would collapse. Fortunately, he can always heal their fatigue using system points. A life point is a day of time. After putting it to themselves, they would feel they had just come to a sauna and relaxed for a day. Day by day, using life points, they were the most efficient machines. However, after all things have a limit. Although their fatigue is gone, the memory of the tiredness and blood that they just experienced didn't disappear.
What do you mean there was no need to fight?
Sky asked in puzzlement. Maximus should be eager to upgrade his status to Vanquisher rank and buy a shop in Purgatory City. After that, life would flourish. There would be no need to fight to earn crystal credits. And you could also stay in Purgatory City for as long as you wanted. However, Maximus wanted to stop just as they advanced to Sentinel rank, 2 levels away from the Vanquisher rank.
Why do you think we fought desperately for a year? What about it?
Just fighting for a year, who wouldn't? Even though in her previous life, she was not as insane as Maximus, fighting for a whole year without rest. She also fought for centuries with barely any rest. Ahihi, that's why information is the key, Maximus smiled. According to the information in Tintin's database, being promoted to Sentinel rank in less than a year and accumulating 8,000 real-time fights would grant you a special status. Although your rank will be the same as everyone else, you will have the freedom of a mercenary. Instead of a fixed place, you can go to any outpost you want, whether private or public. Although it has a quota to keep the special status, it's enough for Maximus. He can finally go around all over the purgatory layer and collect abyss sources. Although last year's harvest was great, it was not enough to fill his appetite. After explaining his intention to Sky, instead of being happy, Sky pouted. So you brought me to fight nonstop for a year just for this? Otherwise? Do you want to be left here while I go to another outpost?
Of course not.
Sky hurriedly refuted. In her mind, she would rather be tired than be separated from Maximus. It's only fighting nonstop for a year, no sweat. Sky cheered herself. Ah, what a good girl, Maximus patted her head.
Ahihi, what about my reward?
Sky asked shamelessly. During the year, they fought nonstop. Maximus let the Ethereum realm world origin convert the Abyss origin to tabulate their contribution, so they didn't earn much. However, the millions of puppets Maximus bought are still working to kill Abyss monsters and collect Abyss origin. Sky, who came to know this method, became envious for a while. Having puppets to collect money for you is such a great thing. Throughout the year, just with the tireless effort of the puppets, Maximus earned about 10 trillion crystal merits. Although it was nothing compared to the money he earned through reselling, Sky was envious enough. Don't worry, once we can go to another outpost, we will never be short of money. Collecting Abyss Source is just one of his goals to get into other outposts. His other goal is, of course, to plunder money through reselling. Although he can't earn much this way, at least he can legally convert his dimensional coin to crystal merits. Right now, he has over 100,000 trillion dimensional coins if he can convert them to crystal merits. Maximus can be almost financially free. Oh, but I wanted money right now. How about 1 trillion?
Is that enough for you?
Maximus asked helplessly.
Yay.
TSK, did Sky get infected by Lux? She became like a broken radio, asking for money all the time. If you're not pretty, I would not even give you a penny, Maximus thought. Soon after their indulgence, they came to N-Town headquarters to register their special status. Seeing them applying for special status, Cade was a little shocked. Maximus, Sky, I'm surprised you achieved what many would call insane, Cade said in admiration. It's just a fluke, Maximus said humbly. How can killing Abyss monsters be a fluke? Sky just rolled her eyes. Anyway, do you know the responsibility of being granted this special status? We know, Maximus nodded. The special status not only grants you the privilege to go into any Abyss outpost in the Abyss realm but also a series of responsibilities. First, you must complete at least 5 mandatory missions per year. Second, be on call once there is an Abyss tide. Third, be on call when there is an Abyss raid being formed. These are only one of the few responsibilities. This special status can be considered troublesome, making you like an obedient worker. However, it's just the opposite. Besides the Ethereum Abyss Council's ability to order you, no one can give you instructions. Besides that, you can also be part of the Ethereum Abyss Council's decision-making panel. Anyway, there are a bunch of perks to having a special status. Unfortunately for Maximus, these privileges are just smoke and clouds. Nothing is more important than Abyss Source and crystal merits.